Hello, I'm Sue Kelso with the Good Heart Artist Residency. Today we will be talking with our second artist this year experiencing a stay-in-place residency, Danielle Klebes. Hello, Danielle.
Hello.
Good to see you. Danielle will be collaborating with us over the next 2 weeks to feature her vibrant work. We are excited to share her work with you, our community. Joining me today for this conversation is Joanna Hogue. Hello, Joanna.
Hi, Sue.
Good to see you too. Joanna is an artist and designer based in Denver, Colorado. She'll probably look a little bit familiar to many of you. She was a resident artist in Good Heart in the spring of 2016. Joanna also serves on our board of directors and was a juror for artist selection this year. On to Danielle. Danielle's work has been exhibited at notable galleries and museums in the United States, Canada, and Croatia. She spent much of 2019 and early 2020 participating in domestic and international artist residencies. When I first called Danielle about the residence, she was at a residency in Norway. Danielle is currently living and working in Castleton, Vermont. Danielle received her MFA in Visual Arts from Lesley University College of Art and Design in Cambridge, Massachusetts in 2017. Her current body of work explores and disrupts ideas of social expectations and gender norms by representing queer bodies in utopic settings. The figures in her work are often captured in moments of uncertainty and isolation, close in proximity, but emotionally distant. There's so much more I want to know about your work, Danielle, and I look forward to the conversation between you and Joanna. So I will turn this over to Joanna.
Sounds great. I'm equally just so excited to talk to you about your work. When I first saw it in the jurying process, I was struck by just the colors and how vibrant the landscapes were. And then looking a little bit closer, seeing that, you know, the figures in the work, they're in sort of these moments of unease at times or uncertainty in relationship to, you know, themselves and the like natural places they were in. So I guess just to kind of kick things off, I'm curious about your plans for what you're working on during this stay-in-place residency. You know, it's a strange time, and I'm just curious like what you're planning on working with and engaging in during this time.
Yes. So I've been making those wooden cutouts of crowds, which seems like a really strange time to be like working with crowds. But I'm on campus at Castleton University, so walking around campus, it's just empty. So what I'm really excited to do during the stay-in-place residency is to respond to my immediate environment and to populate the space, to sort of take my own crowds of people and put them around like the football stadium and outside the dining hall and do like a photo project and installation project.
Wow, that's really interesting. And I guess, yeah, like what are your feelings right now as an artist, like during this time? You know, how has this crisis impacted your career, your work, you know, what you would be doing?
It's definitely wild. Like, I know it has impacted so many people so much worse, so it's hard. But I feel like for my experience, I've had like all of my shows canceled pretty much, so like 3 or 4 different shows, and then I had been planning on doing residencies and they've all been canceled or delayed except for this one, which I'm really excited about. Yeah, so it's a strange like time of limbo, and even like planning for the future. Like I had applied for a lot of residencies and fellowships for next year, and I just keep getting emails saying that they're canceled for the year or delayed a year until they see what happens. So it feels like living in that state of flux and just waiting to see when everything reopens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely a lot of uncertainty and challenges. So I mean, that just makes us so glad that, you know, you can accommodate this stay-in-place residency and still like create work with us and, you know, for the community. So that's really awesome.
About that, yeah. I've been really excited to respond to the environment in Michigan, but Vermont will be great too.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it seems like too, like you've exhibited and shown your work and made work in so many different places. I mean, Vermont, New York, Tallahassee, to name a few. I understand most recently you had completed a residency in Norway. Can you talk to us a little bit about that experience and what that was like for you?
Yeah, that one was like especially incredible. I actually ended up being in Europe until the day before the travel ban to Europe.
Oh, wow.
In a place that was like perfect timing as far as getting home. But the Norway residency was incredible just because of the natural environment, like as far as like being in a place that fits within the realm of the utopic, like it was just beautiful. And then sort of like the cultural acknowledgement of death and difficult things, like for like Scandinavian culture, was really enlightening for me coming from the US, where I feel like we sort of take the more difficult parts of life and hide them a little bit. It was just this sort of like really blunt acknowledgement of that, which I feel like I responded to in my work. And I actually applied for that one again, so I'm hoping that after this I can go back to Trondheim. But yeah, it was a really great experience.
Awesome. Yeah. And when you say sort of like that acknowledgement of like death as a part of life and suffering, like how did that come across to you? Was that in the artwork that you noticed there, like in the culture and talking to folks?
Yeah, all of that. So made like a real point of going to all of the galleries and museums while I was there. And they have a cool thing where if you're a practicing visual artist, any like art cultural experience is free. So that was like very cool. But I wish I'd written down names of some of these shows, but they were just like kind of morbid, but in a beautiful way. And it just sort of like expanded what I thought you could even talk about in art without it being it's so difficult to explain what I mean, but and then I was in residence with this artist named Ewan from Sweden, who he made a lot of work was sort of like bluntly acknowledging death. Like he did this really beautiful video project of a photograph that his grandmother had taken of like it changed my perspective on what you're allowed to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really the best that you can hope for, you know, with any sort of residency experience and getting close to something and having that, you know, impact what you're thinking about and what you're doing. So yeah, that's really neat to hear. You know, I guess I'm curious to I want to dig in a little bit to like the core of your work and what you're doing and like why you're doing it. You know, and looking at some of your paintings over time, like pre-2016, I think you're doing a lot of like really figurative work, but it didn't really have like the color that it has. Like I'm looking at the work behind you and there's like so much like vibrancy and how you've represented like the landscape and so much saturation and prismatic color. And I'm curious about like, you know, that transition to using more color and yeah, what's kind of driving your work now? How has that changed?
I think it came from a place of like finding confidence in my own use of color. Like I think before I just felt more comfortable using shades of gray or something in the background because I feel like color is dangerous. Like you can put a couple of colors together and it's like painful to look at. But then I was like really thinking about the art I like looking at. And if I was basing like it was basically like I was making work that I liked, but it wasn't like my favorite artists are like Nicole Eisenman and Peter Doig and people who are super colorful. So I just wanted to kind of force myself into that group and be more like the art I like looking at. So I think that's where the colors initially came from. And I was living in Florida, which is just incredibly colorful. And, it's hard to not eventually respond to that.
Yeah, definitely compared to, you know, like the East Coast, it's like you get down south and things just kind of pop.
Yeah.
You mentioned Nicole Eisenman. Can you talk about other of your influences, whether artistic, you know, political, you know, philosophical? Like, where do you draw a lot of your inspiration from?
Yeah, some other favorite artists are like Dana Schutz, and I'm like pretty wild about the Guerrilla Girls and all their projects, and Jenny Holzer, and like I feel like my taste in art is kind of all across the board. yeah.
And what are you hoping that people, feel or get from looking at your art?
I think my goal is for it to be initially like easy to respond to. Like I want it to be like first response that it's beautiful or something, like colorful, or maybe there are plants that you like, or figures, you know how to respond to that. But I wanted to sort of give you a sense of unease, or like more of that like visceral trapped feeling, or the loneliness experienced within a crowd, like the longer you spend with the work. Like I think if you walk into a space that's full of the wooden people, it feels populated and it feels like this community or something. And then I feel like the longer you spend in a space like that, the more you realize like your own isolation or your own inability to actually connect with anything. And I really want that. So I want to trick people into feeling empty.
Gotcha. Yeah. Color and beauty can be such a clever foil for other messages we want to share. And I'm curious too, like you have this like painting, these like 2D works, which are gorgeous. And then there's like this movement to, creating these like figures that maybe make people kind of consider how they are, in space a little bit more versus like looking at something like, when did you start making these like life-size figures, and what was that process like for you?
This might be a good time to share my screen because
Please do.
So just learn this. Sorry, I'm trying to find it.
Yeah.
Okay. So the transition kind of started here. This is the first like aimless pilgrimage painting I made. And I was making several of these, and they started with collages of individual photos. Like the people were all alone in their photo, because I wanted to make these crowds of really disconnected people. Mm-hmm. So I would collage them into a space, and then just to get that sort of isolation. And then I have a couple more, like this was another one, and this one. And then the next step just felt like to make a physical space that you could step into, because these paintings are really large. Like they're like 5 feet by 6 feet, I think, for this one. But it's smaller than life size. So I really just wanted to build the entire space. So that's where that started. And then I moved into, so these are the wooden figures. And that bright, colorful background, like I felt like I was really missing it. So in Canada, so a few residencies ago, I started painting the backs of the figures. So the figures, when I have them in like a crowded room or something, become like a much more 3D object, like more of an experience to walk around, and they interact with each other differently, because they sort of can be the background, the utopic background, without needing like a beautiful outdoor space. So that's where those came from.
Wow. Yeah, it's so great to like see that sort of progression in your work. And I'm curious too, like how have those been received? Like when people come up to the figures, like have people had any like interesting responses to them? How have you seen people interact with your work in the wild?
It's really interesting. So I've only, because it's a relatively new project, I've only been making the wooden people since like December. So I've shown them once so far, which was in Canada at the end of that residency. So that's like the main actual exhibition space. And it was really wild watching people interact with them, because you would see different people get really close to the figures where they're like right in their faces looking at like brush strokes. But yeah, it's from far enough away that starts to like be confusing on who the real people are and who are the paintings that put the crowd in space. So you see these people just like totally invading the personal space of your painting, but it's, it's fine, but it still looks bizarre.
Yeah, that seems really interesting, almost like a social experiment to kind of watch people and see what they do, Yeah, that's really cool. And I guess, yeah, just to wrap up here, I'm curious to know, well, this is kind of a two-part question. I'm curious to know how attending residencies has just benefited your experience as an artist overall in your career, and what advice you would give to other artists, thinking about applying to residencies.
Yeah, I think it's been like the single most important element of my career so far. Like it's just been like, it's completely changed me, I think, as an artist and as a person. I think the biggest element is having a community of artists and having people within who like care about this as much as I do is huge. And also residencies where you're in spaces with other artists, I feel like it really quickly influences your work. Being in a new place is huge. Having like the support, sort of feeling validated, like as an artist, that somebody wants to like help you and give you an opportunity like that. So I feel like it's been incredible. Advice for people applying to residencies. I think the most important thing is to make your application specific to the residency, like to actually read about the residency and like find out what their mission is and like learn about the place you want to go versus having one generic application that you send everywhere. I think that's my biggest advice, is to, yeah, actually respond to the place you want.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. And that's something that, I feel like as a juror as well is really hugely important in that process, is seeing how people are interested in Goodheart and what we stand for and what this residency means. So yeah, I guess, thank you so much for sharing your words and your work with us. We're so excited to have you, at this Stay in Place residency, even in these strange times. And I guess with that, I'll turn it back over to Sue.
And thank you as well.
All right, thank you both. Yeah. Thank you both so much. I just have the feeling when the two of you are talking, you could probably just talk and more about this. I find your work very intriguing. It was just wonderful to see more of it and to hear what you have to say about your work too. And just the sound of the birds coming through the window in the background, Danielle, is very pleasing here. We find artists that come here really do connect with the nature around here and the beauty of Goodheart. So hearing the birds was a lovely thing. I do wish we could host you in person here in Goodheart, and we do hope to meet you here someday. So just thank you, Joanna, and thank you, Danielle, for doing this. And we do look forward to seeing what you do over the next 2 weeks, and we will share that with our community. So if you're listening right now, just please make sure to follow us on Facebook or Instagram so you too can see what Danielle is doing, and on our website too. And just a huge thank you for supporting our program. Community support is wonderful and helps us do what we do. So thank you all, be well, and have a great day.